July 31st meeting of the Rowley Conservation Commission, and administratively we are going to begin by reviewing the minutes of the October 5th, 2010 meeting, which have been distributed. I have a couple of comments. Okay. So we'll start. The first item, which is the Fox Meadow Condo Association. Yep. It seems to me that the phrase complex maintenance really means maintenance of the complex.
Right.
So maybe put complex in a
I'm
different
sorry,
spot.
which?
It's about halfway down,
Halfway down.
after the line that ends in Rhonda. Maybe what we need there is maintenance of the complex property.
Yeah, maybe just.
Or just
Why don't we
maybe.
just say for maintenance of the property?
Yep.
Just cross off complex.
That works.
Earlier in that paragraph where it's agents, Basil presented ortho photos, might be useful to indicate somehow what ortho photos are. I have no idea myself. And you use a different phrase later on.
I would just say aerial photos.
That would be great. That's the phrase you use. Expectation that town folks will all read these.
Okay.
I was thinking, well, I thought it was a contraction for something, but I didn't know what it was.
In page 3, enforcement order for the Maker property. Line 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. I think the word towards the end is not reprocessed but repossessed.
Oh. Spell check, strike it, yeah.
Yeah. And 3 lines below that, the word I think we're looking for is losing, not loosing.
Right, I saw that one. Yep.
That's all I got. Oh, well, no, I have one more. In the page 4, well station number 2 discussion. Let's see. Third line from the bottom, third full line from the bottom. That should either be the Water Commission or the Water Commissioners. Water Commission was or Water Commissioners were. Yep. Comments?
Well, actually, upper right-hand corner of the first page. I assume you mean meeting, MTN, or spell it out, so that you can.
No.
Oh, minutes?
It's a file, actually.
Minutes, yeah.
It's a file now.
Okay, never mind. Withdrawn.
Yeah, that was very good. All
Right
right.
now, that's how they were all labeled ever since
Yeah.
I started, so I just kept doing the same thing.
No other revisions being suggested. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of October 5th, 2010 as amended?
So moved.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Two against. And that passes. Great. Thank you. Minutes, again.
Long and complicated.
Compliments, yeah, it's a complicated meeting. I'm amazed we ended by 10:15. A lot of stuff on that.
Takes longer to write the minutes than the meeting does So,
Might have been more good work. I think that's the assistant, again, that we can thank for that, right?
Well, she did the proofing.
You did the writing, you did the writing. Then we thank both of you.
Well, may I request approval or a couple
Yep.
small bill reimbursements for me, please? No, I did not. Didn't get that far.
you buy your tape, huh?
I stopped over to Georgetown Building Supplies.
They have different colors.
Yes.
Any other administrative matters? All right, well, then we'll move on to the first item on the agenda, which is the 7:45 item. New stormwater management permit for 98 Trowbridge Circle, map 14, parcel 9, lot 20, Daniel and Jacqueline DeStefano. You're Mr. DeStefano?
Yes.
Welcome.
Want to read that legal attitudes?
This is a legal notice of the Rowley Conservation Commission in accordance with the Town of Rowley Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. As amended, a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, July 31, 2012 at 7:45 p.m. at the Town Hall Annex located at 39 Central Street to consider a stormwater management application filed by Daniel DeStefano for proposed filling and grading activities associated with backyard landscaping improvements to a single-family house lot at 98 Trowbridge Circle, map 14, parcel 9, lot 20 in Rowley. So, let's see, do we have a memo?
No.
No, okay, that's
I have
fine.
a memo, although I handed out an item so we can discuss it, but part of the reason for not having a memo is there was an expectation of plans being submitted that were going to show some of the proposed work. And Mr. Stefano communicated to me earlier that he's having slower than expected response from the surveyors. I was figuring out how to say that.
Sure.
Nicely.
Okay, so are we in a position to address it anyway without the plans?
Well,
What were they for?
that's kind of hard because the purpose of the plans is to be the erosion control plan for the project, which has an integrated component of the small intrusion that went into the 100-foot buffer zone of forested wetlands that needs to be restored, and then that kind of will end up being sort of the limit that the sloping and finish grading of the fill that he deposited to extend his rear yard. But in my reviewing the prepared application that Julie Von Drock had submitted, and I don't know if this is a typo or not because she's not here for us to ask tonight, but she made a statement that it would be finished off in a 2-to-1 slope. And today, in my looking up some reference material, which is what I copied you folks on, I found a couple of sources that talked about not recommending that steep a slope for filled material unless you specifically had like a engineered analysis that the fill in combination with the characteristics of whatever soil would be used to do the finished topsoil loaming or whatever would be stable in that type of configuration. But Mr. DiStefano, who's here, came in and spoke to me briefly before the start of the meeting, said that his intention is actually to extend and feather out towards the closest extent where the 100-foot buffer zone comes in proximity, and that would actually, I believe, result more in approaching a 3-to-1 slope and maybe even less of a severe angle than that. But 3-to-1 is what the recommendation is for this. And I just included, I found a very helpful table on the internet that I included as part of this too, as well as the backside of the piece of paperwork talked about vegetating the slope and steps to do that, which I assume is what the end result is going to be, is that we're going to vegetate.
Yeah, grass.
So what we're missing is the survey plan?
Well, the survey plan's here.
We have the survey base
Of
plan.
existing. He never put in, the guy went away for like a week, and then it took him a week to do anything, and then the
So
bottom
that-
line is he submitted this to us last week, and
This is existing.
he came out and shot based on what I already did.
Yeah.
And when I got back to him to say, listen, this, you need to add to this what the end result is gonna be.
Yeah.
As
Here
well as
we are today without,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Still
it didn't have the 100-foot buffer zone.
I mean, I measured.
I drew that.
Yeah, I measured off the scale of the wetlands markers to get the 100-foot buffer.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't actually put it in this drawing, but
No, all right, okay, so this line here is drawn in by you, Brent.
Yes, I drew that. And then the highlighted orange would be the perimeter or the limit of the overall work. And then what one would probably want to see is the depiction of where the edge would then be of the 3-to-1 slope, because this is all just the existing conditions, which shows presently where the edge of the fill is, but that's not the finish, that's not the finished grade, because it's way too severe.
yeah, I mean, this would be the finished grade, the buffer zone here. So,
Right.
you'd be, the steepest point would be from this top elevation to that point. And the rest of it has more area to.
So we don't really have any disagreement about how
No.
to carry this out, we just don't have the documentation. So obviously one choice is to wait for the documentation, but I wonder if this is a situation where we could approve the plan contingent upon submission of plans to reflect it, which is a little unusual. Usually when we're doing that, we're making revisions to a plan that are
I mean, I
minor
wrote-
in nature.
Again, without him,
Yeah.
I kind of took it upon myself to make my own plan, added on to that, showing, but again, it's not
Right.
anything scientific.
Well, what we do sometimes is we would say something like, if we had a few revisions to a plan, we would approve the application, close the hearing, and make the approval contingent upon submission of revised plans within 14 days.
Yeah, I feel confident that should be.
Well, that would be the question, because he's not here and he hasn't actually drawn it for you yet. So it's a little different than just revising an existing plan.
As well as we don't normally provide our function is to review,
Review, not review.
is to review
Right.
and gauge compliance, not necessarily tell someone else what they should be putting
Yeah.
on the plan. Now, granted, this isn't a structural
Right.
building type project. You know, I do think that, I do think that the edge of the 100-foot buffer zone should not be used as the control point. I do believe that whatever the 3-to-1 slope works out to, that should first be evaluated and find out whether that actually does touch the closest proximity of the 100-foot buffer zone, and then see where that 3-to-1 slope ends up being, and use that as the control for your final finish grading of the project. Because out there in the field, the 100-foot buffer zone line is really only something that we deal with in terms of our regulation of the wetlands bylaw and the Wetlands Protection Act. It's not any type of physical determinant of, you know, what a slope should be or anything else like that. It's like you should design the slope to
work.
meet the criteria, which the
Right.
recommendation seems to be that 3-to-1 in a fill situation is relatively assured of stability. Is that a good way of putting it,
That's a good
Bob?
way to put it, yes.
Yeah.
As well as I also checked with the Board of Health, just because I know they deal a lot with mounding
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
septic fields, and they say that 3-to-1
3-to-1.
slope is their standard also.
So, right, I guess.
So I just was just saying that number comes from a couple of different sources of being
Oh, yeah, I'm with-
a
I'm
good
with
thing
you,
to
yeah,
shoot
I mean,
for
it's-
in regards to putting fill down. Because of course, we don't want something that's on a slump, you don't want subsidence or
No.
anything like that too, so.
Just barely makes it. So he's checking it. So it's a Xerox.
Yeah,
That's the Xerox of the plan, so it
there
should
shouldn't
be
be
more
too
or less
much
one
distortion in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it appeared that it appeared that there was adequate room. There's adequate room to do this, and they've got a couple different sources that recommended doing it. And I have a feeling that it sounded like talking to you that was your original intent, so that may just been a typo in her.
Oh, right. She said 2-to-1.
She said 2-to-1. And so at a bare minimum, we should look to have that revised.
Well, yeah. So if we did approve it tonight, it would be with, among the conditions it would be approved on, were that a plan showing the work and showing no more than a 3-to-1 slope was submitted within 14 days. It's just, you know, I don't know. Other commissioners, how do you feel about doing that? We don't have such a plan. It's a little different than approving a plan with revisions that have been discussed.
But just by scaling this, if I'm assuming the top of the slope is about elevation 80, according to this, is that about right?
88 too.
And if you maintain a 3-to-1 slope, I mean, 3-to-1 will fit before it hits the buffer zone line.
Yeah.
So
that.
if we have 3-to-1 as a max slope,
And we put that in our finding, or in our order.
or, yes, I mean, it should all fit, we should be fine.
Right.
Who's this engineer?
Well, it's it's surveyor.
I
It's,
mean, who's the surveyor?
Eastern Land Survey Associates, Mr. Mello.
And you think 14 days he could accomplish that?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if we do it that way, the worst that can happen is the plan comes in and it shows something unsatisfactory, not a 3-to-1 slope, or, you know,
I mean-
an unacceptable intrusion into the BVW, and in that case, the approval fails, and you just come back in 3 weeks and we work it out in 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I can get 3-to-1 out of it, because if I have to, I can cut the existing grade back and
You
Go
can
back.
go backwards, yeah.
you know.
But then if you're gonna do that, the plan's gonna look different, I think, than the one that would be drawn otherwise, right?
Right, But if like his evaluation said it couldn't work based on what's there, then we could make it work.
You could make it work.
A revised drawing showing.
So,
Well,
maybe, well, I was gonna
I
say.
was gonna say. Who has more authority?
You do.
Boss.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say, if there's a change, it doesn't affect the wetlands at all. It's only the stormwater. And the stormwater is not really concerned about where he starts the well.
True.
So,
He can do anything he wants at the top of the slope.
yeah, I would tend to agree with Mr. DeStefano's point that he can go back into the slope, go back towards the house,
Yeah, that's good.
if he needs to.
And again, really, because, again, this isn't any type of structural endeavor here.
Right.
And, I mean, the only thing that I noticed starting off was that there also should be a depiction of where the crushed stone entrance exit pad is at the base of the driveway, so that the vehicles tracking in and off the site knock off their dirt and stuff. You know what I mean? Entrance, crushed stone
Oh,
entrance
yeah.
exit pad,
Mm.
which is actually in Ms. Van Dry's.
It's a requirement.
Yeah. Well, it's good site management, because otherwise, if you go tracking mud all up your
Down the
driveway
road.
and then tracking mud all through Trowbridge Circle, you're gonna get the neighbors calling, you're gonna get the highway department calling, you know, as well as you don't want stones kicked up and cracking someone's windshield and stuff like that, so that's just it's a good thing. And really, we've mostly got erosion control here, and the requirements that we're gonna write are not so much going to affect the plan, but put the onus on Mr. Stefano to appropriately manage and use appropriate erosion control, like once he gets things graded out, there should be erosion control at the top of the slope where the break is, to keep anything from starting to go over and starting to gully down the slope. And then he may even have to consider doing intermediate erosion control to stop anything like velocity picking up and it actually creating gullies down that slope. Because you don't want concentrated stormwater. If it does rain or cloudburst before everything's all seeded in, you don't want it just taking out a whole gully and sluicing all your topsoil all down to the bottom there. So usually erosion control line is the top, and then possibly, depending on what the length is, another intermediate line, and then a line at the toe of the slope until things get all vegetated in. As well as I showed highlighting there, some kind of limit of work thing too, until things get all stabilized and seeded in. So those are requirements that we certainly can put in the permit, and whether it's reflected on the plan or not does
Doesn't matter. Right.
does not negate compliance with that
Right.
requirement.
Right. So I guess it's really a question of whether the plan that you submit is inconsistent with any aspect of what you just discussed. It doesn't have to show all that, because in many cases it wouldn't. But it needs to not contradict it.
Correct.
Right. So I guess I'm comfortable doing it that way. I don't,
Yeah.
I mean, it's different because there's no structure, there's no
Right.
wall. It's not like we're missing a plan that shows where the retaining wall is going to be or something like that. I don't know that I would feel comfortable doing that. And you don't really have any other concerns. As we were talking about this a few days ago, the stormwater management plan in and of itself is fine, except for that 2-to-1 problem.
Right. Yes, and we could get that single page can be revised. We
Right.
could Get a revised page so that reads correctly and can be referenced in the permit. And really, again, what I've drawn in, highlighted in on the plan, the only thing I would add to that would be where the proposed finished toe of slope is going to be, representing the 3-to-1 slope.
Yep.
That's, which
Yeah, I
you
mean,
which you already know is kind
Essentially,
of
it's the
needed
buff-
for the plan.
The buffer's online, yeah.
Well, like I said, only at one point, it actually diverges because you're keying that, the reference point for that is your break and slope, where you're establishing the top
Yeah.
and going down. So,
Any commissioners have any opinions to express other than already expressed? It seems to me we could approve this contingent upon a submittal of a plan within 14 days reflecting this discussion.
I would suggest 21 days.
You think? No, that's fine.
What?
The only thing about that is, if it's 21 days and they submit it on the 14th to 21st day, and there's a problem,
Yeah, then it
you're
pushes
not
it
gonna
back
be on the
again.
next
Yeah.
agenda, you'll be on
Yeah,
the
I
next
don't wanna do
agenda,
that.
save one.
I mean, I should be able to have this essentially by the end of the week.
Yeah, well, we
At
can
this
give
rate.
you 21 days, but if there's a problem, you'll miss a meeting, and then we'll be into.
Well, this shouldn't have to
where-
come back to a meeting.
Shouldn't have to, unless there's
If
a
the
problem
plan
that we
comes in
can't
and the plan's
discuss.
acceptable,
Yep. No, I'm saying if the plan
Right.
isn't acceptable.
well, if the plan isn't acceptable still administratively, we've kind of set the parameters, and
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
But you still won't, you know what I'm saying, you still won't have an approval. If the plan's not acceptable,
Right.
you won't actually be approved until yet another meeting goes by. So what you want to say to your fellow is, he really, even if we give him 21 days, he really needs to get it in by 14 or so. So we can discuss it with him and make sure that everything is right. Or, you know, Brent has time to review it. Right? Makes sense?
yeah.
Okay. And you don't have any other concerns, right?
No.
You're fine with that? Okay. So, stormwater management permit, I guess it'd be a motion to close the hearing and issue the permit contingent upon
With the
submission
conditions
of the
as
plan as
discussed, yeah.
discussed.
And revision to the
Stormwater
project
plan.
narrative.
One paragraph, yeah.
Well, actually, the one numeral.
One
The
sentence,
two-
one numeral.
The two changed to three.
Right.
So it's a three ones.
Right, very small revision. Okay, so do I have a motion to that effect? And is there a second? Second. All in favor? All against? Motion carries. Okay, so talk to your guy. If he doesn't understand what he needs to do, he can call Brent, but it seems to me you
Yeah, no,
clearly understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
So. So, you should be all set. All right.
Actually, let me give you this.
Mr. DeStefano, you got a copy of this, right?
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you understand that my time was out here.
Well, yes, yeah, I wasn't
Yeah.
doing it to scale,
Yep.
but you're correct. So, okay, let me just make a copy of this. Now, it was just pointed out to me, I didn't do this to scale, but I realized that this one more than likely be
Yeah.
down here. But this is just, so it needs to be the limit of work, which is usually the erosion control that will be around the perimeter to keep everything in there. The crushed stone pad. Okay, 100-foot buffers.
Yeah, that comes up.
So I'm just, all right? And that one revised page.
Yeah, I'll be able to get a hold of her right now.
Okay.
To get that to you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've already issued an enforcement order and a
Oh, we
directive
did.
for the restoration of that area. Yes. Did that under our jurisdiction, under the act of the bylaw, the wetlands. Next item is continued, so we do not have a legal ad.
So this is the 8 o'clock item on the agenda. Continued notice of intent for right-of-way, Sunset Drive, map 36, parcel 1, Federal Highway Administration et al. Proposed resurfacing of 2.8 miles of Sunset Drive. Welcome. You can come on board if you'd like. I understand you all went out and did a site inspection. You were not murdered by greenheads. Progress right there, right?
Exactly. You didn't keep out the riffraff, though.
I'll say. Did you see Brent's memo?
Yeah,
Yes,
we did, before we left the office. And, just out of curiosity, you talk about, management of dust and noise, and I was just curious, what's your management of noise?
It's in the SWAT plan.
Okay, what you're waiting for from federal highways, right?
Well, I'm assuming that since that plan mentioned the silt fence and that has been changed to the filter berm, I was
Yeah.
assuming that they would at least be making a revision to that page of it.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, it calls for in there, the contractor having a water tanker available if there is a dusting
Yeah.
situation.
But I was just curious, it was the noise aspect of, also.
Well, I think they talk about that
Okay, so you're.
also, and that
Okay.
probably actually is more contingent just on them setting up
Yeah,
hours of start, hours of ending.
Okay.
In regards, you actually don't have the issue of
Right.
there being residences
no.
nearby to the project.
If you can hear that.
Although I have no idea how the plumbers might react to rumbling trucks or
No,
whatever.
there's an onshore breeze, they probably won't hear it either, so.
Did you receive the provisions? I have 3 copies, provisions and some supporting documents.
I would like at least 2,
Okay.
if I may have,
Absolutely.
for the file. I only received electronic copies.
There's 2 of the revised plans, and I have some supporting documents that you may want to.
That was just the memos from federal highways.
Yeah,
you
I've got
probably
the,
already
I've got the
have.
cover.
You have these, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I printed those out. And there was also, I think I've got all the rest of the stuff too, which doesn't necessarily require you handing me paper on it. Yeah, the receipts for the notification.
The
required
special
by-
contract requirements.
I've got that.
Got that?
Yeah.
And I think there was one more. There was just the untreated aggregate courses descriptions.
I've got that
Got
also.
that, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's okay. That, I think, was more the Ipswich
Yeah.
That came up.
conservation
Yeah,
folks
site
wanted
visit.
to,
We'll
wanted to
see them
know.
tomorrow evening.
And then we have the issue of the WPA fee, which really nothing we can do about it.
As they say, the check's in the mail. I think that they're getting the authority to cut a check, and that might take a little bit, but
Yeah.
they realize that,
Yeah, I'm
we're
sure
not,
it might take a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
they realize that we're not exempt.
I'm surprised, I'm surprised.
Whoop, I'm sorry?
Does that fee come into us first and then get?
Well, we get a portion. We will get the town portion of the WPA fee.
So how does that work? Do they submit 2 checks or does?
Yes.
One to us?
Submit a
and
check
one
to the Commonwealth and they send a check to the town. I talked to Lana yesterday and went over how to figure it out and fill out.
Okay, so anyone have any questions? Members of the public on that? Any concerns you want to raise, Brent?
No, but where this, I do want to ask for this consideration, and that is that I would like to see what Ipswich proposes for conditions in regards to that. So I'm not requesting that we hold and not close out the hearing or anything this evening, if all the concerns of the commissioners are satisfied. But I would like the ability to review Ipswich's conditions, and if appropriate, to shamelessly copy or borrow something if they phrase
Would
it.
it be good for you to talk to them? I can imagine going tomorrow night and them saying the same thing, see what Rowley says.
I think probably
He's
what-
senior to me. I'm junior in terms of years of service, and as well as the fact that Mr. Pankos also has a law degree too. So
I think
his
the
phraseology is usually better.
The thing that would raise in my mind is that we would not want anything inconsistent.
Right.
And that would not be in anybody's interest. So just on that grounds, and they may have better phraseology than we do on things, or vice versa, I suppose. So, yeah, I'm sure that's fine with you folks. When are you seeing them? Tomorrow night? Okay.
They actually have more of an interface where we have a smorgasbord of various sensitive resource areas that are right up to the edge of the roadway. We're actually relatively benign and mundane in the area, the section of the Robinson Valley, where it's really just the back dune, coastal dune area. It's rather dry, rather stable because it's rather well vegetated, and isn't subject to periodic inundation, as I put in my memo. So it's.
I would suggest it isn't inconsistent in substance, it may be harmful, I mean, this minor inconsistencies that we should have conformed to or adhere to.
No, but if it's better language, I think what Brent's thinking is, since they're coming up at the same time,
Yeah.
essentially, if it's better language, we'll conform our language to their language, or something like that. The main goal to be consistent,
Yeah.
but also just to have the best language we can.
I mean, in one sense, we almost have the same situation that we had with the previous applicant, Mr. DiStefano here. We really have a project that isn't structural, isn't getting involved in an excavation or any type of infrastructure work other than just bringing in new gravel and refreshing the top bed, if you want to say that, or the top layer of a dirt road. Obviously much more linear than the previous project, but really it's the appropriate conditions are all dealing with erosion control, and they've prepared a swept plan, which this particular project triggers, and the big landscaping project earlier did not trigger the need for that. And so there's really all the details and the specifications have really all been worked out. It's just a question that if they come up with something, I just would like the ability to be consistent and incorporate it. I don't foresee that there actually will be anything. I think it might just be a question of how they word things. Well, the one thing that we did have a discussion at the site visit, which since none of the commissioners, none of you folks were present for that, I just wanted to let you know about, and that was the truck washing station, as to where that would be positioned. So I believe the end result was that it may be off-island, off-site, as opposed to being configured in your maintenance.
And that was, the purpose of that washing station was to keep dust off the vehicle, or?
Well, here again, I think that's why they got into
Yeah.
the specifications for the aggregate, because if you're dealing with a material that has more of an organic content and more of a moisture situation, you've got adhesion to to truck tires.
Right.
And tracking.
Right.
So then you get involved with the washing, where this is just a relatively dry, inorganic
Yeah.
mineral aggregate. There, it isn't anticipated
Right.
that it's actually gonna go very far, and the fact that you've got, what, a couple miles
3 miles.
of paved
Yep.
drive there anyway before the vehicles go
Reality
onto
is they
public
may
roadways, I think, you know.
They may
any-
never use it, essentially.
Right, yeah, I mean, other than that, you know, they're gonna have dusty cabs and dusty
Right.
windshields, and probably their trucks will need to be washed, but they probably just do that as a normal maintenance thing anyway.
Might wanna consider washing them before they come into them, so that they won't bring in, Phragmites seeds and other undesirables from
Yeah.
other projects.
Yep, that's a good point. We'll stand there at the gate inspector.
Yeah, well, again, that's up to you guys.
That's not going to be a condition. All right, well, based on that discussion, I think I need a motion to close the hearing and issue an order of conditions, right? We are procedurally.
Contingent on, where is my note?
Conditions typical for a roadway project
Yeah.
contingent upon the fee,
Right.
the file number, and the revised stormwater plan.
Yes.
All right. So, obviously, yeah, you gotta pay the fee.
Well, yeah, because there's no file number, so I can't issue a valid permit.
Right,
anyways.
right.
Who's going to determine the fee? You've got an
That's-
approximate
think it's
symbol
in
in
here.
there.
We already looked, yeah, I
It says circle.
had looked it up, category 3 for $1,050, and C, road construction, not crossing or driveway. That's how it's phrased
Okay, so
on the sheet,
so
and that's the guidance from DEP.
So the quotation mark should go before the C.
Yeah.
I assumed you were
Well, I just put the-
approximating the 1050, but you aren't.
Oh, you mean C as in circle?
yes.
Circle? Oh, okay.
So what I was reading.
No, there's those A, B, C, D,
Yeah.
E, or
Yeah.
whatever, it's number C, but it's phrased, it's not the best English I've ever seen for a project description, so.
Right.
Understood.
Right. So do I have such a motion?
So moved.
And is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Motion carries. Good luck with Ipswich, and not that you really need it, I'm sure.
How many miles are in Ipswich territory?
More than we got.
Yeah.
Circa.
Circa, you
2
know,
miles?
2 miles.
I was gonna say, I think they got the 2 and we got the
Yeah.
.3, right?
Yeah.
0.8.
0.8.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
They were upset with us one year, you know, remember Camp Sea Haven?
Yep.
Yeah.
We burnt it. We had a volunteer firemen come in from various communities and burn it. And for some reason Ipswich was never contacted. And it's like right on the line. And they weren't too pleased with us, so I hope they don't bring that up.
How many years ago was that? That was a
That was
while.
about 94 that
Yeah,
we
say.
finally got it out of there.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
We'll put pressure on them to send you the money.
So
Good luck
that's
with
it.
that.
That's
Yeah,
it.
right.
File it for each town.
It's a little revenue sharing, federal revenue sharing going on there.
Yeah.
It was strange in the video.
No, to me, very
Just
surprising.
going from one pocket to the other, so it's
Okay.
Yep, there's somebody up at the train station.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. With, that road guard and so on, off the road.
The reflect that Commissioner Keys has had to leave, so she's now absent. We expect her back.
There's no memo, and there also is no legal ad on this because this is discussion in regards to an issued notice of violation in regards to lack of a certificate of compliance.
So let me just read it. It's the 815 item, a notice of violation, lack of certificate of compliance, number 630378 for 8 Turcotte Memorial Drive, map 17, parcel 20, lot 50, BNJ Realty Trust, Richard L. Martin Jr. trustee, completion of stormwater management facilities. And if you could introduce yourselves, please.
Certainly. Alan Roscoe from Hancock Associates, representing Mr. Richard Martin, seated to my right, who is the owner of the property and the business at this location. This has come out, obviously, we need to clean up some paperwork. I've been in contact with Mr. Bazelak, and we've had a site meeting, and we're moving forward on coming up with a remedial effort. So we can request request for certificate of compliance. We have a design ready for an infiltration basin, which is a modification of what's shown on your approved plan, and we expect to be under construction with your blessing sometime this month in August, so that once the basin is constructed, the grass will take in September and stabilize the soils. And at that point, we'll be ready to come in with a full request for a certificate.
So tell me where this, just give us an idea
Sure.
here.
Just
See an
brief-
infiltration basin here.
This isn't the commission that approved the project, so anything you tell us.
It's different membership, but it's the same body,
Yeah.
yeah.
Not entirely.
Not
Well,
entirely.
not entirely, but most of it.
I would
Okay.
say.
But if you expect Kurt to remember all the details, they're probably expecting. Was 10 years ago, I see. Okay, so.
But basically, the site was completed essentially as shown on the design plan,
Uh-huh.
with the exception of this infiltration basin.
Okay.
Most of it lies beyond the riverfront zone and beyond the buffer zone. And for some reason, it wasn't constructed or wasn't fully constructed. If you look at some photos, there's a shallow, sort of depressed area.
Is this buffer zone blue?
Blue is buffer, yes.
Yeah.
These two lines are the inner and outer riparian zones.
Okay.
So this photo is showing, you can see, there's a little depression right out front where this structure may have been intended to be placed, but for some reason it either wasn't completed or was filled in, and probably either changed hands or a different contractor. Obviously it was before my time.
So we're looking at this from the Route 1 side?
Correct.
I
Yeah,
see.
this is
Okay.
looking kind of this.
Yeah,
this-
I see.
So once we found out what the issues were, took a look at the old order, we advised Mr. Martin that we ought to complete this structure in some way. And we invited Mr. Braithwaite to come out, and we walked the site, took a look at the different options. Once we saw that we were largely outside the buffer zone, we decided to go ahead and do some percolation testing, which we've now completed, and then do an actual design so we can accommodate all the roof. The roof of this existing building is all pitched towards Route 1. And there are downspouts, it's 5 or 6 of them along the entire front. You can see in the photo. And they
Spill onto the lawn.
spill onto a little crushed stone pad.
Right in there.
It turns out it's not very thick, it's not really an infiltration system, but it does dissipate the flow energy and provide opportunities for infiltration. And over time, it seems to have been functioning okay. Maybe not in some of the larger storms, but this shallow basin could hold a small volume of water. But realizing now that we need to be in compliance with all the stormwater management guidelines, with resized and redesigned that basin in accordance with 100-year storm calculations. This is our site plan of that area that shows the existing building. The addition was never constructed. We'd like to shape a long and narrow infiltration basin with stone line on the bottom, 3-to-1 side slope so we can mow it and maintain it. It may not be attractive or the most attractive feature on the site, but it does perform a function. So it's located approximately in the center of all of the downspouts, and as Mr. Winslow noted, this last downspout out here would be difficult to pipe or shed runoff into a structure located in this area just because there's a stockade fence. It would require ground disturbance in the buffer zone. It might just be better to line the ground surface with some larger stones to take away that flow energy and let that runoff run down the slope, but contain the remainder of it here inside the filtration basin.
So how does the flow from the downspouts get into the basin? It just sheet flow?
Gravity, yeah. It'll either infiltrate or it'll flow over the land.
So it's not collected into a pipe header or a pipe in, it's
Right,
just...
it's just flow over land,
Flow over
it'll
land.
all shed and give it an opportunity to infiltrate along the way. So if the ground is saturated, it'll flow into the basin. If it's not, a large portion of it will infiltrate.
So this design here is just plain totally incorrect, because this was draining the front of the building, not the back of the.
That's
Oh,
correct.
well.
No, that is correct.
incorrect.
The roof was pitched towards the
Oh, it is
front
correct,
in the
yeah.
original proposal, so yes,
Oh.
so it was actually going to be picked up by leaders, guttered, and then brought over and piped into the
Piped.
infiltration
Yeah.
basin.
Yeah.
Possibly because the roof was pitched the other way, that never got built. That would be my speculation.
So I hope they didn't put the building in backwards, but
Too late to do
yeah,
anything about
the
that.
intent here, I mean, this is really a refinement and what we see it as an improvement over the previous design. The approved plan, that shows a fairly steep side slope, and we want to keep it more minimal, allow it to be maintained, and still perform the same function. And again, it's largely outside of the buffer zone, so it's something that may not require additional submittals and review by this commission. But I do have a design set of calculations that will show that we have sized it appropriately, and it's slightly larger than what's shown in the approval.
And the building's slightly smaller, actually, because there isn't an addition. Never built the addition.
What sort of work goes on inside the building?
It's all paperwork.
We do medical billing.
Medical? Billing?
Billing.
I see you've got a picnic area here, which is very nice for employees. Do you have employees ever bring their children there? Because what my thinking was if they sneak around the end of that stockade fence and fall into a full detention basin,
And that's why we sloped it gradually, so that we wouldn't have an issue there.
Children or small animals. So.
What's going to be the depth of the water in under your event?
It'll be 2.5 feet. Yeah, we get not the greatest percolation rates, but it's 10 minutes an inch. So, it will pass water, and once we get below 6 inches from the ground surface, it's pretty decent, only sandy material.
Point out the inner and outer riparian zones again, please.
We're showing the outer riparian here because it shows up on our little snapshot. On the approved plan, here's the outer riparian, and here's the inner.
That's about 100 and 200 feet.
Yeah, 200 foot would
Correct.
be the outer boundary.
The waterway, which
Is confined to the left.
is shown on this map as an intermittent stream, which makes that irrelevant if that's in fact true. I don't remember whether we decided it was intermittent or not, but I would not want that, I'd like to see that question cleared up.
No, it's perennial.
Okay.
So you had the
I was reading
you had the
those two.
you had the juncture of two intermittent streams coming together, which must have produced enough flow then
For a perennial.
for it to be perennial.
Good, thank you.
So
That answers that.
Yeah, we wouldn't dispute it anyway. We're outside the buffer
Right.
zone.
No, we just like to be careful not to approve plans that say something is intermittent when we haven't made a determination on it.
Other people may pick up on that.
So we've also done a partial as-built of the areas that are not gonna change. So we already have that so-called in the can, so that when we do finish the construction out in the front lawn,
You can get a complete.
we'll have a complete site as-built, and we can submit our request.
So this site is just this building, right? It's not anything else in Turcotte Drive, okay.
Is that being sized so as to accommodate any runoff from the addition if it ever becomes reality?
No, it's just what it's serving right now. Certainly could be expanded
Lengthwise,
if,
to the north?
correct, yeah, if the addition were to be built, but
Okay.
it's not worth putting that
Sure.
infrastructure in for something to be.
Right. But just as long as it's done, so that you can take advantage of it, because we don't want hamstring if we do choose to have those.
Anything else you want to add, Brett?
Well, yeah, there was also the requirement, and I don't remember us checking this out, but later on when you contacted me, Alan, I noticed that there was a requirement about the dumpster being on an impervious pad with a curb. Has that been verified?
I don't recall that particular detail, but I'll look into it and we'll
Okay.
straighten that out before.
And then we had also talked about the fact that at the front entranceway, landscaping had apparently covered what we assumed was a storm scepter unit. Was that ever, did you
Yeah, it
discover
was-
that, and is
it was-
it?
I'm sorry, go
No,
ahead.
did you discover it, and has it been inspected?
Yes, yeah, we found one cover that wasn't landscaped. So we threw a light in there and made sure that was what it was. And got the elevations that do show the storms.
Okay, so has the stormwater infiltration system been inspected?
Been
so that-
inspected and maintained only by our survey crew to locate and identify the elevations.
Well,
That will be done.
I was gonna say, it'd be good to
Right.
be doing that on a simultaneous track with doing the basin, so that when you come in here, it can
Schedule.
be one-stop shopping for a complete certificate of compliance.
So the way we envision this is that sometime in September, as long as the grass can take, we'll be back in with our formal request. If that schedule meets with your approval.
Sure. I think we have a meeting in September on the 11th, and probably, let's see the dates up there, but whatever 3 weeks from the 11th is, so, you know, whatever suits you. I don't know if your grass will be growing by September 11th.
32nd.
September 32nd, yeah, that's right.
Maybe October 1st.
From the 7th. Okay, well, that all makes sense to me. Any commissioners have any concerns?
I just have a minor question or two. What is this?
I have, well, the Crestone area, I have 2 dogs.
Okay, that is, looks like a dog pound.
They keep me sane during the day.
That's exactly what it
Or a
is.
kid's playground or
Yeah,
something.
no daycare. it's my 2
Paperwork
dogs.
and an animal shelter.
My 2 dogs, and there is a, there's a
Pretty nice dog. Jeff.
Yeah, great dogs. And there is, the other area, we have a smoking area out in the back of the parking lot. I have identified as such with those yellow,
Oh, okay.
I don't see any signage in these pictures. Do you have signs that I'm just not seeing here, or
signs.
saying the name of the
There's a sign at
business?
the entranceway. I think.
There's a sign at the entrance, there is a sign right on Route
Okay.
1, right underneath my flagpole.
I'm usually paying attention to traffic when I drive by.
Yeah, no, yeah, we don't get a lot, our clients don't come to us, we just go work electronically, we go to them.
Sure.
It's really
Sounds like a great business.
How many employees do you have?
52 right now.
Really? Where's the park? Yes, there is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of spaces. We do have parking about 50% of those folks work a second shift, but we actually have enough space for the whole crew.
Oh.
Finding good folks who want to work second shift is hard. I don't blame them.
What are your hours for the second shift?
4:45 to 1:15.
It's tough.
Yeah. Some people fit their schedule, so it's great for us.
You go to the always open gym then.
And the always open CVS in Newburyport, and the always open Dunkin' Donuts somewhere. Rowley doesn't feature a whole lot of always open places. Okay, any other questions or anything else? It all seems like a sensible approach to me.
And there's no concerns about the slight work that is in a jurisdictional area
No,
for the runoff coming off that back corner.
No,
That's
it's
why we have you.
perfectly sensible solution. I was thinking you could just omit the downspout and sort of pipe it over above, but that's not as good a solution. Probably not gonna work. Okay, so we'll see you, this is an administrative, is it right? It's administrative, it's
Yeah.
a
Yes.
violation, so you just have to ask Brent to get on the agenda. We'll put you on.
Right, we've already got the start for the paperwork for a request for a certificate of compliance.
Right.
We'll keep Brent posted.
We found it wasn't built.
Yeah, found it wasn't built.
When it found it wasn't built, we figured we better come in and actually I had proposed, one of the reasons they were doing the soil evaluations there was because I suggested the idea of seeing whether crushed stone infiltration trenches right at the drip line might possibly accommodate, but not knowing what the volume was or whatever, I think. But that's why they checked out the soils, because that was a potential option here, but apparently the volume is more significant than could be accomplished by the plans.
6.5 inches over the roof area, so it's pretty decent.
All right, so we will see you sometime in September or October.
Absolutely.
Very smart to come in and let us see it before you build it. It's always a good idea.
Okay. So keep one of these. Do you want the pictures back, or do you want to take the pictures? It's okay. The same pictures. Very good.
You want to go home and watch the Olympics?
Or the Red Sox. Unless you're from New York.
Maybe the Olympics. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mark.
It's,
That's not his fault. You know, and it's just,
You're right.
as unattractive a
Yeah.
light industrial building as you could build. And it's right on the road.
Geez, you're not looking for a job in hours.
Yeah.
Probably
I know.
clean work. Do the stuff.
Certainly not dirty.
Smoking area.
If you're not really a people person, because it's not a people job. So look at the screen and type it in type of job. I always have clients who do jobs.
That's not a bad shift. Excellent.
Where I work,
we got
three shifts, yeah. 1 to 7, or what is it, 1 to 8? 3 to 11, 3 a.m. to 11. Typically a doctor situation or hospital situation, that's the typical cruise ship, right? 3 a.m. to 11.
11 to 7.
Yeah. 11 to 7.
11 to 7.
7 to
7 to 3.
3 to 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that last one is a killer. Get up.
3 p.m. Till 11 at night or 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
It's the mid-March, maybe.
How do you stay awake?
Okay. Yep. Brings us to the 8:30 PM item, which is a new request for partial certificate of compliance 63-202 Saunders Lane subdivision, lot number 22, now known as 41 Green Needle Lane. Map 23, parcel 86, lot 22, Libby Jones, owned by James R. Long, asterisk.
Not sure what asterisk goes.
I added that agenda item this morning.
Do.
That's why you guys.
And despite the fact you added it this morning, you have a memo for us. Amazing.
Well, it kind of helped that, last meeting, we had the above-ground pool and the clearing proposal, which was like,
Next
one
door.
one house away from there.
Was it next door?
Not exactly next door,
Yeah, this is
but
gonna
literally one house away,
It must
so.
be real close. So you've been there recently?
Well, so, yeah, I mean, well, and plus there really is, there's hardly any jurisdictional area. I mean, the original, I think these lot lines were changed, but you can actually see this stone wall. You can see the stone wall in the aerial photo from the assessors, and I think this property boundary was actually reconfigured because this didn't have this jog in it that this one does now, so I wouldn't be surprised if this property actually doesn't have any buffer zone in it at all now because of a change, because you see there's a little degree of deflection there on that, and then I think that corner is new too, going over there, so I think this, because this plan is from the original subdivision approval, which was 97, so I think that lot was actually shrunk a little bit.
Where's Leathersfield Street, down there?
Yes, yeah, this is Green Needle going out to Weathersfield. This is actually, well, Saunders, this direction goes to Weathersfield also.
This piece of the property is up on a hill, so to speak.
Yeah, the topography does go up behind it, not substantially, but a little bit.
Well, up from Green Needle to the right.
Yes.
Well,
So we have,
this
the
request
folks came in to me
presumably
this
was
morning, I believe,
something to do
either
with
their son or
refinance.
daughter is interested in buying it, and their closing attorney alerted them to the fact that the order of conditions for the Saunders Lane, or what was called the Pines, is still open because there's never been a resolution. The town took the roadway by eminent domain because there's still outstanding tax liabilities, and there's still a couple parcels in the original developers, their trust. Token Realty Trust.
Fitting name.
All right, well, let's.
So anyway, the recommendation is,
Yeah.
since there's no infrastructure, no replication area.
And very possibly no buffer zone.
No buffer zones, and
I
no
think we can
order was
safely,
issued for the residents separately, so.
All right, so do I have a motion to issue a partial certificate of compliance incorporating the ongoing condition noted in the memo, which is number 33, fertilizer restricted to low nitrogen type and pesticides and herbicides prohibited from the 100-foot buffer zone, if any. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against. And that passes. brings us to the end of our agenda. Anything else in the nature of enforcement or other such matters that we need to discuss?
I don't know unless you want to just go over what Commissioner Turner over.
Well, we probably should. This just came out yesterday. Day before yesterday. Oh, the other thing I'd like a report from Mr. Turner on is the dam meeting, Lower Mill Pond Dam meeting. But first, let's talk about this, because this actually has to do with the commission directly. So by way of background, when Kurt was, I think, returning from that meeting,
I've actually gone to the report, and come back, and I saw the glance down there, and saw paving going on that whole street. It was abandoned by the town or something, I don't know the details.
this is where the jewel mill is.
Fulling Mill Road. What that used to be called according to the assessor's records that we got.
So the river,
River is right there.
as Brent said, the river sort of makes a U around three sides of the property almost.
What's more discernible on there is the floodplain, since the river is represented
Yeah.
by just a single blue line, but you can see the floodplain curving around there.
So, see, I guess right here is the ancient, very ancient stone bridge. No, I'm sorry, I got it backwards. Right here and here are ancient stone bridges. This one very old. And I guess the story is that like 15, 20 years ago, the town gave this little section of road back to the private property owners. Cut it off from Route 1, put in a guardrail here. And so the traffic goes down to this corner and back up Glen, which is how we've always done it since. And as I recall the story, this was quite a while ago, they did it partly because this was running right through these people's front yard, and partly because this ancient bridge here was of historical significance and they wanted to keep traffic off. So that's the background. So, Brent, you're
Well,
fine.
there didn't, the paving was technically an activity that is in an area regulated by the commission, but it's, when I consulted with DEP, what gets triggered is this is redevelopment in the riverfront area. And so I was told that some commissions consider it discretionary as to whether, when it's a straight overlay, about whether they get involved in it or not. And so I was advised to evaluate it by whether there was any expansion of paved area, whether any other infrastructure appeared to be developed or modified in regards to putting down the paving, because it's all in the riverfront area. It appears that there's enough of a drop in the topography that it more than likely is outside of the floodplain. And it doesn't appear to have been done in a manner that would change any of the runoff characteristics going off of there. In fact, there actually was a little asphalt berm right where the abutment retaining wall comes over on the side. But what was in evidence, as you can see from the large 8x10 photograph, is an extremely large pile of landscaping debris that is right on the break of slope and extending down the slope towards the river, and which of course is smothering whatever living vegetation had been there, as well as presenting a whole bunch of unconsolidated soils and dirt along with the landscape plant matter that is just cascading down the slope and going into the river eventually. as it gets washed down there. There also was some, like, landscape timbers or something, some short sections that were taken out and discarded. In this photo, there's two pile of loose soil that probably is from where the landscape timbers were dislodged when they did the repaving. So I haven't actually issued the notice of violation, but in discussion with Doug and Kurt, we decided that that's what we do. We'd issue a notice of violation for dumping within the 100-foot riparian area in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands, which is along the river.
But no violation on the paving, because the paving seems to have been done appropriately. Exactly
Would have
the
been
way you
nice,
would want
would have
it
been
done.
nice to consult on it ahead of time, but it doesn't appear to have done anything that would have necessarily triggered the need
It's kind
for.
of odd. But, I mean, it's none of our business, it's private property, but it's kind of odd because it's a road to nowhere. It goes to the
Yeah, why it
guardrail.
goes all the way up to the guardrail, I have no idea.
It's not, it's sort of a driveway, but not really.
So it was paved before?
It was paved before, and it was
Because it
was
used to be a
old.
road.
It was quite, it was broken up pavement, as I
Right,
recall.
It actually wasn't in that bad a shape when I was there with Mass Highway.
You would think if
About
it's that
3
close to
years
it,
ago.
They want to leave it open that they do, but
They were taken out completely.
they're taking it out, yeah.
There's a house here, building here, building here, building here. So who lives where?
This house that's right up next to Route 1, there's a little tiny driveway where cars are
Yeah.
usually parked right there. right?
That's the residence, what appears to be the primary residence.
Is this the old jewel mill, I mean, the showroom for the jewelry, or?
I don't know,
Yeah,
I
one of
couldn't
us.
raise anybody at either of these
That's a
buildings.
jewel mill. This was a storage building or something of that nature. As was
That's
this
a barn
one
of some
recollection.
kind, now, it looks like.
That's the house.
Yeah.
It seems strange to do all this repaving when the driveway of the house and the parking is right there. But maybe they're
No,
going
I
to
know.
discontinue that.
Did they pave over the bridge?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost right up to Route
Right up,
1.
right up,
to the
actually,
guardrail.
see where that match line is
Yeah, I was
right
gonna
there?
say this
Right up to
guardrail
that
there.
match
It's a
line.
big
Paved up
guardrail
the
there, yeah.
guardrail.
Yep. And it's not like you could bring this driveway around like this and use it. There's no
No.
room. This is quite a slope here.
Yeah.
So you could, I don't know what you could do. I don't know,
Horizon-
but again,
Horizon the guardrail, and see if it's gonna stay in place.
Well, that's actually kind of their decision.
Yeah. But the way I remember this story, Sam, was they really wanted that.
Oh, yeah.
They wanted the road discontinued so that the traffic wouldn't come through.
I also,
Then again, this is long enough ago, I'm not even sure the same people.
I don't know. I know the Foresters have owned it for a long time, but I don't know if it's that long.
They have, yes, I'm pretty sure they have. Somewhere in there, the road gave way,
Yes.
at least once, it had to be repaved by the state.
Well, actually, that's why I was out there with Mass Highway, because
Right
this
there,
large
that
boulder
is.
riprap
Mhm.
Yeah.
wall and then slope, this was having some issues of subsidence, and so they
Right.
actually repaired that. Gave them a suggestion about how to keep the riprap from dropping into the river and not being irretrievable.
Well, this is the river.
Yes, yeah, that's.
I've
the
actually
river.
seen all that flooded,
Mhm.
that roadway.
It gets wet.
Because where it passes under Glen Street right about here, and Glen Street's been topped over there, and that's pretty steep there.
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah. Yep, so, I don't know.
Well, I appreciate you looking into that. I just couldn't tell on a quick drive-by what, you know, except.
Well, it couldn't be
Kinda
closer to the
weird.
river without being in it, so. Certainly a concern. All right, so that you guys are now all up to date on that. Anything else?
Want to talk about the dam meeting?
Oh, yeah, the dam meeting. So this was a meeting among the state dam,
The Office of Dam Safety.
Office of Dam Safety of the Commonwealth of
DCR.
Mass. Yeah.
couple of people from there, and one presenter from the consultant, I gather, that they hired. What was it?
Yeah, Matt Belisle from Pear Corporation,
PARE, right?
Rhode Island.
Brent was there, it was right here, and I was here, and the town administrator was here, and Joe, what's his last name, Perry, selectman was here, and the highway supervisor was here. Who else? So
That was it.
that was about it.
You guys all know which dam we're talking about? It's the one right near the new bridge on
Dodge Road.
Dodge Road. I guess.
And the pair folks had done a study of the whole thing with regard to the significance of it all. And what I got out of all that was that there was no imminent danger with regard to collapse of the situation, but it is something that could cause problems in the future. The thing gets complicated because I don't want to go into too much discussion on record with regard to the legalities of the situation, because if we're going to do that, we need to go into executive session. But other than to say that piece of property in question is owned by an estate of a deceased person whose parent heirs conveyed the property to the deceased person, which essentially, and no taxes have been paid on it since that conveyance apparently, which puts the whole thing in limbo and would appear to isolate the property owner from immediate liability in any meaningful fashion, because no probate has been filed, apparently also. I gather from the discussion that this is something that tends to be in common practice for these types of situations where dams are involved that may pose significant questions and problems. It strains the lower mill pond. There was discussion about the surrounding property owners and whether or not there may be some interest in their joining together with regard to this. The discussion of the state folks and the pair people started off by indicating that there were two alternatives here. One was to rebuild the dam and one was to take it down. I interjected an objection saying that the other thing is to leave it approximately as it is, with some sort of passive active management of the thing to make sure that there's no immediate danger from the whole thing. There was possible concern voiced by the state as to whether or not if you let the whole thing drain out, whether there were pollutants inherent in the lower mill pond that might spill downstream, which to my way of thinking didn't seem very likely. And there was concern on their part if the whole thing was let go, similar to the kinds of concerns all at once, like Brenda's voice with regard to beaver dams, whether there'd be a mad gush down river which would cause potential problems that way.
I was
It's a-
told today that there's going to be a subsequent follow-up meeting requested by Deborah and Selectman's office.
So there is
The huddle.
the apparent or alleged heirs of the estate would appear to be also the active developers of a proposed 40B project up further back this way on Country Club Road that I guess is not something that's been finally decided. It's not clear to me whether it's planning board or board of appeals that has jurisdiction there. Town administrator mentioned that it was jurisdictional, I think, with regard to the board of appeals. She didn't mention, and I didn't get a chance to interject, that we have jurisdiction over that from a wetland standpoint as well. Those seem to be the main issues, as well as maintenance of the lake as a recreational, visual beauty kind of thing, which has been a subject of lawsuits in other jurisdictions. So there are lots of issues and questions here. none of which got resolved, but everyone seemed to think that, well, it's not clear to me what everyone seemed to think, but everyone seemed to be in agreement except me, which my view of the situation was that the town just ought to take the property for taxes and maintain it in some sort of mode similar to where it is now, which would require basically a minimal amount of involvement by the highway supervisor, and I neglected to say probably Brent as well in terms of monitoring. The number was thrown on the table in terms of cost of rebuilding the dam of about $500,000, is that it? Which, who knows, but seems like an enormous waste of money for nothing when it's something that probably, might need future emergency involvement, such as has occurred with regard to the logs that drifted in there in the dock and the kind of thing where Brent was involved. The state came in. The state has no particular enthusiasm for redoing that kind of thing on a regular basis, but they said they might be available if needed on occasion. There was also discussion as to whether anyone had talked with Tim Purington, who heads up the Riverways division within the state, and they indicated that had occurred to them recently, and it was unclear as to whether they had not, but they suggested the possibility that they have an independent source of funds if the town wanted to go ahead and do something formally with regard to either removal of the dam or building it. Tim, as you may know, was instrumental in having the state take out the dam that goes behind Central Street, coming down from, well, what's the name of that waterway?
Well, it's Fennel Pond.
No, actually,
West Ox Bastion.
right.
Yeah, where it leads into the marshes. So that kind of thing has been done once before because there's no immediate proximity of this waterway to the marshes. That subject didn't come up, but it's quite far removed from the marshes, even though it's a major thoroughfare from the upstream elements and the two mill ponds down to the Mill River and into the marshes, more so than the Ox Pass appropriate. So anyway, what am I leaving out?
Stay tuned. Okay, well, thanks. I'm glad we were present at that. Anything else you want to bring up? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
All right.
All against? Meeting is adjourned.
Seems to be a lot of movement these days to take out.